Vilification. Chapter 5. Horse paste and the vilification of early treatment options. One of the first things that made me very confused about the pandemic was the amount of people gathering in long lines for testing with hundreds of other people who could potentially be sick. I do understand why they did it, because we all want to know if we are contagious to others and need to self-isolate to avoid getting family members and others sick. But it seemed like probably not a great idea, considering at the time there was no early treatments being given to help people try to reduce or alleviate their symptoms. I found this extremely odd. How could doctors not have a potential off-label drug that could help people avoid serious complications? What was going on here? Not once to this day did I see a single mainstream news channel recommend using vitamins to help boost your immune system, which is extremely odd because we know vitamins like D and C along with zinc help bolster our immune systems, so the fact that not once in any newspaper or mainstream news was this being offered as advice. Some doctors started to see that antiviral drugs like ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine were showing some promising results in reducing death and major illness. Ivermectin is a drug that has been used to treat parasitic infections. William Campbell and Satoshi Omura won the 2015 Nobel Peace Prize for its discovery and application, and it is on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. Ivermectin is an extremely effective and inexpensive and has been used in over 6 billion human doses, which makes the next part of this chapter very odd. All of a sudden, when we turned on the news and late-night shows like Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, we were being told that ivermectin was horse paste, and anyone who used it or recommended it was not only a fool, but a dangerous conspiracy theorist. That needed to be mocked. Saying ivermectin, which also has uses for animals, is horse paste is like saying water is cow thirst quencher, because cows also drink water, or like saying Xanax is a cat relaxer, because sometimes pets are given it to reduce their anxiety. It was not only disingenuous, it was criminal, and it shows clear collusion and corruption to vilify this drug that has saved millions of lives, and it was obvious that there was a clear attempt to make sure it was not used to treat COVID-19 in both Canada and the USA as well as other countries. But at the same time, countries like Japan and India were showing that it was having a great effect in reducing death in COVID-19 patients. There were thousands of doctors who spoke out for ivermectin as an effective, safe treatment option. Dr. Peter McCullough testified in front of Congress under oath that ivermectin had the potential to save 85% of the lives that were lost to COVID-19 in the United States. McCullough, one of the most cited doctors in the country, testified before the U.S. Senate on November 19, 2020, saying, "I estimated at the time we could have saved half of the lives. If we used early treatment combinations such as ivermectin, there are now current estimates that we are up to potentially 85% of lives could have been saved," something called sequenced oral multidrug therapy. Do not be fooled. There are many doctors across the planet who have found similar conclusions. I am trying to keep this book short and to the point, so listing 20 other doctors who are speaking out about the corruption going on regarding the entire pandemic. Although easy to do, I don't feel will keep the reader's attention. Instead, I will explain how these doctors are silenced. One common statement I hear from people when they are exposed to this information is, "So everybody is in on it," in a condescending tone. This is the part that most people cannot wrap their heads around. The answer is no, of course not everyone is not in on it, but what is happening is that people are being silenced out of fear of losing their jobs or lawsuits, and so on. So as for the medical community, they have basically one option, and that is to recommend the COVID-19 vaccine. Think about what happens if they don't. If they come to the conclusion that it is a dangerous, untested vaccine and advise against taking it, then they are labeled a conspiracy theorist and slandered, and may face the possibility of losing their medical license. So if you have kids and a house and a mortgage, I want you to think about how brave you would be after 10 years of medical school to risk throwing it all away to speak out, or just rely on the safety of sticking to the script being passed down from your superiors in the medical community and face zero risk of liability lawsuits. So of course 99.99% just follow orders despite the obvious increase in vaccine-related injury and the obvious evidence the vaccine is not working. So as an example, in Canada, what happens is the doctors are given basically top-down orders, and when they break those orders, they are slandered in the news. paid for by the same people giving the top-down orders, and are threatened with legal action and potentially losing their medical license, again controlled by the same people giving the orders. So even if a physician has some questions about why alternative treatments are not allowed, or if they have any concerns about the dangers of the vaccines, they are put in an extremely difficult position where they have two options: potentially risk their losing their career and be fined/slandered as a hydroxychloroquine-pushing, Trump-supporting conspiracy theorist, or just go along with the top-down orders being received from Health Canada and the top doctors who are following directions that are being laid out from the CDC, the WHO, and the FDA, all of which are now fully corrupted organizations receiving huge donations from a list of billionaires who want influence over their decisions. An example of this is Dr. Patrick Phillips, a family doctor from Ontario, Canada, who is prescribing ivermectin off-label as an early treatment to patients with COVID-19 infections. Phillips had his medical license restricted in September of 2021 and has been banned from Twitter as well as slandered in the media and medical community. The article I am reading on him now, written by Ashley Stewart of Global News. She states in regards to Phillips joining a group of like-minded doctors to facilitate ivermectin to those who want it, the group falsely claims there is currently no approved outpatient therapies for COVID-19. Then they mention this is false because now there is Paxlovid, which is an orally taken drug made by Pfizer. See a trend here. Ivermectin is an extremely cheap drug, almost so cheap it costs more to package and ship it than to make it. Yet of course we have the paid news media, of course, supporting the large company Pfizer's oral COVID-19 treatment Paxlovid, which of course is brand new. And also in the same article they show a picture of ivermectin, and they show instead of the ivermectin made for humans with over 6 billion doses used by humans worldwide, they show instead the ivermectin used on horses with a clear picture saying horse paste. Now this shows a clear attempt to fool and manipulate people who are not cunning enough to know that this information is being manipulated. Again, saying ivermectin is horse paste is the same as saying Xanax is cat relaxer or that water is elephant thirst quencher. It's a way of gaslighting and manipulating people who aren't aware of the fine details here. So to end this chapter, you can see when someone asks you, so everybody is in on it, even the doctors, the answer is that you see what happens when the doctors aren't following the orders they are given. They are facing huge potential lawsuits and slander and potentially losing their jobs, so in a way they are basically being coerced into following top-down orders with no real upside of speaking out unless they are extremely brave and willing to risk it all to protect people and do the right thing, which thankfully many are, but as expected more often than not the pressure of potential backlash will silence the vast majority. So the answer is no, not everybody is in on it, but that's the problem. The same way a dog can control a herd of sheep through fear and lack of knowledge, that is basically what is happening now. A very small group at the top, under instruction from groups like the FDA and the WHO, are controlling the masses, and they have extreme power and connections. So you can see how an entire medical community can be corrupted by just a few dozen people in positions of power at the top level. What we basically have now is the drug companies funding the FDA to judge whether or not their drugs are safe, which is a huge conflict of interest, and when a member of the FDA decides against the safety of a certain drug, they are promptly removed and replaced by someone else more friendly to the drug companies. And if you think this sounds far-fetched, I will quickly remind you of the opioid epidemic, where synthetic heroin was handed out like candy, ruining countless lives. Do you really think that the doctors overprescribing synthetic heroin didn't know it was extremely addictive? That is a clear and undeniable example of literally thousands of doctors, some being paid by the drug companies to overprescribe for profit, and some following orders or following the path of least resistance, walking in lockstep to the detriment of the public and to the benefit of the drug companies and to themselves financially.